We are going to have to act if we want to live in a different world.
Welcome to Edgecast 14. I'm Victor Von Zoom, and we haven't done this in a long time, so we're totally off our game. With me is Garam.
So little to do and so much time to do it in. No, wait, reverse that.
Yeah, and Swade.
Hey. That's all you're getting.
So, man, we have a fucking huge... We have a huge backlog of stuff.
That's because we've been desperately trying to get everyone's schedules to line up, but somebody's got to actually do something worthwhile with their lives.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Zoom. Okay. Why are you so fucking busy?
Because I have an actual 9 to 5, you fucking cucks.
Oh, boy. Speaking of 9 to 5, I swear to God, just trying to keep track of all the shit that's going on these days feels like a 9 to 5 job in and of itself.
It basically is at this point. I mean, the media hasn't been doing its job in forever.
No shit.
Or,
so
let's guess DNC is burning. Let's talk about that first.
Yes, the DNC is burning down. Holy fuck. What the hell is going on with those guys? So, Donna Brazile, of all people, former head of the DNC, is now joining the We Fucking Hate Hillary Clinton camp and has published a book and been doing the tours and not painting a very good picture for the state of the DNC. She's saying that when she took over, they were $2 million in debt, mostly thanks to what happened with Obama and him just siphoning off money from the rest of the party into his own re-election camp, which would explain why, under Obama's leadership of the Democrats, they lost so many state legislature, Senate seats. So they were $2 million in the hole. And the only way they were going to get themselves out of that hole was taking money from Hillary Clinton. But it was, what's the saying? Free things are the most expensive things in life. Oh boy, were there strings attached.
I mean, I've never heard that before, but I definitely believe it.
Yes. Or maybe something equivalently of, there's nothing more expensive than free. In any case, Hillary Clinton and her cronies, in exchange for bailing the DNC out, apparently took over complete control of the organization. Donna Brazile expressed this as she felt like a slave within the organization because the Hillary camp controlled the financing, strategy, and staffing of the entire organization. So from this gives a massive amount of credibility to the Bernie Sanders camp, complaining that the primary was absolutely rigged in Hillary Clinton's favor.
Well, I mean, that was basically already confirmed. We didn't really need them to have any more credibility. The problem with listening to them was that whole shebang happened because Bernie signed on with them in the first place as controlled opposition, and then went rogue when he realized that, like, the country was filled with young liberals that were going to that would have voted for him over Hillary.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's still like old quote unquote anti-establishment liberals that say Bernie could have won over Trump, which honestly at this point I'm still speculative of. But if he had been the main candidate, I don't know if anything else would have gone well, because Hillary would have probably flown under the radar once again, and we wouldn't be having the modern, like, you know, the big thing going down with the DNC, other than just, you know, it being burning, and then the Russia election narrative, like, is that, you know, Hillary Clinton is now desperately whining to the media about the Clinton Foundation being investigated by the Department of Justice.
Yes. Speaking of the Russia thing, that was something Donna Brazile also hit on. According to Donna Brazile, they knew that entities, whether it be Russian state or simply Russian outright, were attempting to get into their computer records. And they did nothing about it. for allegedly a year.
Yeah.
So her explanation of the entire Russia thing is, the Russia thing happened, but it was incompetence and corruption.
I mean, even if I don't think Russia actually hacked the election at all or had anything to do with that. And I mean, I'm not even just saying that, like, well, in my opinion, I mean, like, no, I'm pretty sure that didn't happen at all. And the people that think it still happened, that are acting like, election machines were hacked and there was social influencing and everything, it's like, no, Russia isn't good at social influencing. Like, Russia doesn't pull shit like that. Like, they do, when they do, it's it's transparently obvious. It's like, it's lower level stuff. They have very good cyber warfare capabilities from what we've seen. But that kind of stuff, like, that would be, I could see much more obvious that, like, Russia was confirmed to be, be part of the DNC links if it turned out it wasn't actually Seth Rich at all. And like, that would make a lot more sense. But, like, the idea that, like, Russia it's like, look, we can't just do this game forever where we're going to fucking play real politic and with one side of their mouth and then the other act like this is, like, some kind of unfair play and there's sedition going on in the Republican camp because, the neocons are apparently retarded enough to fucking commit treason and stuff like that to get...
And once you put it... Okay, so they've had now some more concrete hearings on this alleged Russian interference with the election in the Senate. And Facebook has come forward with actually some numbers about what they believe were the Russian bot accounts and advertising and exactly how much clout they had.
Yeah.
I was
going to add an article about this. I forgot to add it, but it was something I heard at NPR. I was driving to work one morning, and I was listening to NPR, and they had a article writer on to talk about. They had, like, a journalist on to talk about this article he had written that was trying to play interference for this narrative that Facebook was pushing, where that apparently, like, Russia had these things called troll farms. And they were cubicle farms of inside intelligence agencies that were supposedly constantly producing, like, memes and other social media content that would apparently somehow, like, mind fuck people into thinking the way they do. And it's like, look, I am all for, like, telling people about social engineering and everything, but that dude basically, like, just made up bullshit and went on there, and there was several other articles like that. I mean, if I could find them, I could cite them in the low bar for us later. But, like,
the gulf between the media narrative and what's actually being provided as evidence in these hearings it's like the Grand Canyon, because
it's ridiculous.
So they actually had a hearing on this. Facebook provided their evidence for what was going on. They're saying that these Russian ads got 100 million impressions over the course of the entire election cycle. Now, for comparison, Ben Shapiro, the short Jewish guy.
Everybody knows who Ben Shapiro is.
Yeah. So this short Jewish guy gets 30 million impressions every week. So Ben Shapiro got as many impressions on
edgy
Facebook.
Conservative Jew man.
Yes. He got as many impressions on Facebook as being conservative. So we can pretty much guess Facebook is actively or passively trying to limit his social media reach. He got as many impressions in 1 month as these horrible Russians that completely were able to sway the entire election did in the entire year.
Yep.
They also showed pictures of these alleged ads. They're a fucking joke. The only people they would have swayed are so fucking gullible. It doesn't matter, because they would have been swayed by the last ad they saw one way or the next. It's a joke what's being presented in these hearings. Yet this doesn't stop the Democrats from calling for more control over social media. They want to have the FCC regulate what ads can and can't be played on social media. Now they're talking about having rules on what sort of political speech is and isn't allowed on social media. It's fucking crazy. They're basically asking to create a ministry of truth over some bullshit, fucking terrible ads that I can almost guarantee you no one cared for to begin with.
Yep.
And of course, who's behind all this pushing? Whose face do they put in front of it? Fucking Al Franken, of all people.
Yeah, which, once again, I would make, you were supposed to be the chosen one, and not bring balance to the force, not leave it in darkness, yada yada joke. But at this point, I'm convinced that he was always a shill. And I follow comedy. I like a lot of comedians. I follow people like even Joe Rogan, despite the fact that I think they're retarded. I still like their antics, and I still like, hearing their opinions on stuff from time to time. And it's just I don't know if it was just the whole starving artist dynamic, because comedians are generally really unappreciated financially, or if it was that, or just the fact that or maybe he could have always been this essentially this plant into the community, or it was even worse than that. It was just an effect of because this is probably much more reasonable. It was an effect of the times we had during the Bush administration, where we had during the height of the Bush administration, when everything was going to shit, and the entirety of the Republican Party was being reduced to this international laughingstock all the time, and anybody who said shit about Republicans and conservative policies and anything automatically became some media god, even if they were just saying total bullshit. And that was what happened with the Daily Show and Bill Maher and everything else, is those people were all artificially popular because the entrenched infrastructure within the media that was pro Democrat, pro liberal, anti Bush administration, were always pushing towards that kind of stuff. And they did that for 12 years. And
it's gotten worse, so much worse now.
Yeah, Al Franken, he was around in the 90s and stuff too, but Al Franken has always been kind of just really sad, because every time he comes back in the news for something that he says as a congressman, it's always some bullshit that you didn't think he would have supported at all. Because when he started, he was he was a comedian who became a congressman, and when he was a comedian, all of his routines were just shitting on dumb policies like that, and everything else. He was kind of maybe another Bill Hicks ripoff artist, but whoever.
I'm not even sure that qualifies as a comedian anymore, because part of comedy is saying that which cannot be said in polite society. Maybe. And so many of these people, they stand up and they just get in front of the crowd and they tell the crowd what the crowd wants to hear. Yeah. Does that count as comedy? No. I don't know what the hell it is. There isn't a word in the English language. It's just them getting up in front of people and saying things that the people want to hear, that starts a little dopamine hit in their brain. It's like they're drug dealers. And they're spiking the drugs with political rhetoric to manipulate people.
I think that's a little bit hyperbolic.
It's not so much that it's what people want to hear, as it is. I had a conversation with someone about this previously. I'm trying to remember what I said, but I liked how I put it at the time. Damn it, now I can't remember.
Is it not so much what they want to hear as what they want to believe? Because certainly that's one of the easy ways.
It's more that it makes it easier for them to not have to think about things when they have the...
It gives them a platitude.
It gives them a platitude. It gives them a heuristic. It gives them something that makes it easier to think about things and not have to suffer the stress of, well, what if I'm wrong? When they can just mock someone and dismiss their points entirely and entirely disregard the possibility that that they might be wrong, not having to question yourself and your own beliefs saves you a lot of stress and mental effort, which is really kind of why I guess like this kind of thing is just kind of addicting in a way.
The opiate of the masses.
It's not having to worry that I think is what.
Yeah, like it's
not having to worry about being wrong.
Yeah, well, it's
about losing arguments, and it's more than that. It's also that
all right. So it has to do with the whole like, well, when you find something funny, it's not just because it's ridiculous, but because you think it's a little true, and it's like that has good and bad implications. But
now I remember what I said.
But like, what did you say?
It isn't just that; it's also that when you set up the straw men and then so easily refute everything they're saying, so easily tear them down because they are straw men, it gives the audience like a kind of escapist fantasy that their own encounters with people that disagree with them could be as easy.
Yeah.
That the people who share similar beliefs, but rather than being straw men, have legitimate reasons for them, could be defeated just as handily, with minimal effort on the part of the audience. And like I said, it's a kind of fantasy. It's a kind of power trip. It makes them feel like, haha, I sure wish that was me up there telling that Republican or Democrat why he's a fucking idiot. Because a lot of these people are people that just can't win an actual argument to save their life. Because for so many of them, it's just they don't have any fucking idea what they're talking about. And all the people where you see it like, where they just quote John Oliver or like Glenn Beck or whoever at you, and just act like they've been strut around like they've won the argument.
Glenn Beck in so long, though. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I mean it's kind of like the voice of the voiceless effect, where they it's a platitude, it's a heuristic. They get a canned argument they can use against people that they thought beat them before because they can't come up with something themselves. And then they have their own internal validation where they're like, oh man, this joke killed with all these other people that think like me. There's no way I can't can beat this guy in an argument and convince all of his friends that he's a dumbass. They'll all laugh at him. And that's why, like, that's the basis of all the fucking stupid Facebook memes that people keep pushing about stuff. Where they're just like, we're gonna repurpose a meme that makes no sense, but because, a bunch of fucking yuppies think that it's funny, because it confirms their political biases. Like, it blatantly and obviously confirms their political biases. This obviously is a good idea.
Yeah, and you'll notice that the people that tend to use those arguments aren't the kind of people that can formulate their own easily. And it's not that following these shows renders them incapable of doing so. It's that people that are incapable of doing so follow these shows. It's like the gangly nerd that like is really into high fantasy. Yeah, and I know it hits too close to home, but like the weak nerd that's really into high fantasy because he wants to pretend to be like a buff Conan type character. It's that kind of thing.
But he never actually goes.
They're emulating people that defeat others that they themselves would like to defeat so easily, not appreciating that that it's all just a dog and pony show.
It's basically them
it's
trying
all
to
just
go
straw manning, and like it's just it's just fiction.
As having once been one of those people, I can tell you that yeah, you're right there. I mean, it's fucking dumb because you get to the point where you have people who even who are perfectly intelligent don't think about what they're saying and don't sit there and actually question any of their own, like, and I'm not saying like, oh yeah, if you just questioned yourself, it's like, no, like, people will still believe what they want to believe even if they question themselves, but the thing is that, like, it's to the degree that they question themselves. And, like, there's people who just do not question themselves at all, and or they question themselves once, struggle with the answer, or struggle with the ensuing questions after that, and then just don't pursue it any further. So you have people, like, and I can tell you, like, this from experience, because when I was younger, I had the same conundrum where, like, I literally just gave up on it because I was a fuckwad then. But it was like, you go, like, how could everybody in X political alignment that is opposite of me just be so wrong and want to be so wrong? Like, you get to a point where you realize you can't comprehend. You can't fucking physically comprehend why people don't believe things the way you do.
Mm-hmm.
And then instead of asking yourself why you can't comprehend that, you just go, oh, I guess that's it then. I guess they're just going to have to go in the gas chamber. Like, it's just, that's what these people fucking cater to.
And I'm sitting there going, it's kind of like they want to jump to the end of the hero's journey. And what you were talking about is that self-doubt. In every great archetypical hero's journey story, the protagonist is wrestling with their own self-doubt and their failings. And so much of the hero's journey is the learning to overcome oneself, one's doubts, and one's inabilities. It's the coming-of-age story. They just want to be treated like adults without having earned it. And when it comes down to politics and talking about these issues, you can't just talk a bunch of bromides and slogans at one another. I think it was Jordan Peterson said the concept of, I think it was not slogan or ideology, but it was something to do with of the dead. So when you're giving these slogans and bromides and shouting it at them, you're shouting the words of dead people at one another. And it's really easy to talk past one another when you're not talking about what's here and now, you're talking about what was 100 years ago.
It's like shit like Chris Hedges, where he's like, you know, the founding fathers knew that, like, people were retarded and they didn't want they wanted the Electoral College to keep them down. You know this because of the Federalist Papers, and, like, it just references bullshit that was written ages ago and gives this assumed modern fucking interpretation of it without providing the citation for anybody else, like a direct citation of, like, a page or anything.
And it's really noticeable, and one of the issues I have with the political left these days, just oddly enough being on the political left in almost every metric, is, on the one hand, they'll try and tear down things like gun control on the very basis of shit that was written 200 years ago doesn't make sense today, yet they're espousing ideologies that were pertinent 200 years ago in a very different time.
Well, it's just with them, it's like, it's a tremendous hypocritical mess even to get into that, because like, not only do they fundamentally not understand the ideas behind there or anything, and they whine and go on about, like, a well-regulated militia, and, like, what the fuck do you think a militia is? It's like it's obviously the fucking police. Yeah, that's your interpretation of it. And then they have that, and then at the same time, they also support stuff like Black Lives Matter, which is anti-police, but then they also espouse that they want more gun control, so only the police have guns.
Or speaking about that, just Black Lives Matter is a great issue. I take issue with how they're going about dealing with black communities to try and help them out. They go, well, this stuff was used 50 years ago. This is the ideology of 50 years, the civil rights movement, blah, 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 affirmative action, welfare, blah, blah, blah. And I sit there and go, what's the applicability of that today?
The civil rights movement... the civil rights movement was way more applicable to, like, modern politics than what we're actually doing.
Yeah, and my issue
is, like, the civil rights movement was actually about, like, try to actually be a functional member of the community you live in and get a job and, like, work.
But what came after the civil rights movement was this huge push for social welfare as the way to uplift these communities. And I step back and I go, well, okay, You're shouting the words of dead people. Okay, let's look at the effects of these policies.
I have no problem with social welfare as an actual, like, uplifting measure. The issue is that it's treated as something that's meant to prop people up generationally rather than propping individuals up temporarily.
Yes.
Like, it's like, oh, we'll just give welfare to an entire generation of people so their kids will be better off.
So on the one
parents
hand,
aren't going to impart the merits of hard work onto their children because they don't have to work hard.
yes, and so my frustration is that on the one hand, with certain policies, they go, well, that shit, it's old and we need to re-examine it because it doesn't make sense today. And then on a variety of other issues, they're like, no, the word, the word of the law is God, and you can't change it, you can't question it. How dare you question it? I would like there to be consistency. And I'm not pretending like both sides are angels on this one, but if you want to be treated like a lot of people on the left want to be treated like enlightened human beings, well, fucking hell, you're going to have to listen to other people's arguments and be intellectually consistent.
Yeah, they have a major problem doing that because,
I said, it's they want to be treated as enlightened human beings without having to really try.
Well, they do.
It goes back to the fantasy that I was talking about.
Yep,
those kinds of people just want to be real life Mary Sues.
Yeah, and then it combines all of that stuff combines media influence, these personal fantasies everybody has, the horde mentality that political parties keep basically pushing, and then they essentially are doing the political equivalent of troop rotation, where they essentially they have people that espouse strawmans and then espouse these obvious supported and party backed strawmans and party backed ideas, and then when they get the emperor has no clothes, they get shown to be these fools. They just go, oh well, not all of them are like that. You're just strawmanning this one group of people that we set out specifically to strawman you.
And I think
our actual enlightened people over here believe something else, and you're just a dumbass.
Yeah, and that sort of a policy is an inevitably self-defeating policy because you're not affirmatively putting good ideas forward. Every time you put a bad idea forward, you just back off of it. But people are going to remember the fact that you put bad ideas forward, and you're eventually just going to alienate huge swaths of the population. Look at the DNC right now. They are as unpopular right now as they've ever been in 25 years.
Yep.
And this is coming from a CNN poll. Can you imagine what an
CNN poll looks like? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, people want to talk about Donald Trump's unpopularity. I scoff and go, have you seen the other guys? Both parties, yes, are on fire, but the DNC, holy shit, are you people on fire? Because it's like you guys, your entire strategy inevitably alienates people because you want to be treated like gods, these perfect angelic human beings, whether your policies are beneficial or not beneficial, or even whether the people espousing those policies are good people and moral people, or they're fucking assholes and they grope women and they lie to get into universities or whatnot.
Yeah. And we're just dealing with all of this backlash of all the fucking kludge that they've built up over the last 30 years of them just doing this shit over and over again. That's what's going on with Hollywood. That's what's going on everywhere else. Although Hollywood's probably way more complicated than people think right now.
Oh, Hollywood's incredibly complicated.
Because that whole thing sounds like there's multiple different factions of other liberals all fighting each other for some reason, and that's why everything's coming out at once. This isn't oh no, the levee finally broke. All the sex scandals they couldn't take it anymore. It's no, they've been Hollywood has been this fucking hive of scum and villainy since the fucking 50s. Everybody has always known that there's been bullshit going on under the hood.
There's been jokes about the casting couch in Hollywood movies since the 50s.
Yeah.
I think it's The Producers. It's one of the first films where they make a joke about the casting couch and using sex appeal and the promise of promiscuity.
It's bullshit. I had a conversation with a friend the other day about this. I don't know if either of you caught it in the chat, but it's the whole the thing that tips everybody off is the why now shit. Why now of all times? And it's people have been saying shit. Why is it suddenly Seth MacFarlane is considered to be this great luminary because he managed to drop all these hints his entire career about this and still keeps rising as a writer, director, or whatever, and and showrunner and voice actor and all the other shit that he does. When Corey Feldman has been telling people, it's dude, I there's pedophiles fucking everywhere there, and nobody.
Elijah Wood too.
Yeah, it's all of these child stars that are all fucked up because of this shit, and they all at some level fucking drop hints, if not outright say there's shit going on, and nobody listens to them. Probably because we have a culture that, and I know I sound like a social justice warrior here, but we have a culture that does not give a shit about the suffering of any men ever. As soon as a male of our species has gone through puberty, their opinions are no longer considered fucking important en masse unless they have a shitload of money. And, a shitload of money can always be canceled out by another shitload of money. And it's the why now shit. It's why is Seth MacFarlane getting all this traction? Why are all these starlets that are suddenly coming out? It's I'm not saying people like Angelina Jolie could not have been victimized or something. But Angelina Jolie was also as soon as Angelina Jolie did 3 movies and then became a fucking movie star. A world-class superstar. And was considered one of the most beautiful woman in the world for fucking 2 decades. And somehow, she needs to wait until now to be oh yeah, Harvey Weinstein's kind of a fucking creep. No. A lot of these people had the power to do something about this a long time ago. And either I'm wrong and the system they're put in place, the system of favors and blacklists and everything else is so much worse than anybody has ever really believed, that it's even worse than we think. Or these people are part of probably not a single scheme, but probably their own machinations and involved in several other different plots that are they have turned on people like Harvey Weinstein because they have some other motives going on.
Well, this goes to what it seems like is a greater conflict on the left. The left is between Bernie and Hillary, between the SJWs and the business Democrats. The left is eating its own because it's they don't have a mechanism to. It's they don't have a mechanism to peacefully determine what is from what isn't, or to peaceably hand over power. They've developed an incredibly authoritarian mentality. Look at what they're doing on college campuses. They've been doing this for years, and this is now a huge number of people within their own organizations have an incredibly totalitarian mindset. They want power. They're unable to separate themselves from their arguments. They're unable to admit that they're wrong. And this has been a mentality that has been cultivated on the left. You could look at evangelicals on the right. And I'm completely unsurprised that they're having these problems all of a sudden, because this is exactly what they've been cultivating. They wanted a rabid fan base, I think, and they've promoted the ideology of totalitarianism to a religious degree. They're getting what they deserve.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens when we have stuff like Uranium One actually being investigated.
Yeah, although, that there's a tremendous amount of pushback towards any investigations of Hillary Clinton. Like I said earlier, she's whining now to the media that the Department of Justice is being overly politicized, and it's like, all right, the Department of Justice has been politicized since fucking J. Edgar Hoover. Go fuck yourself. But there's definitely going to be like a lot of inefficiency and pushback against this, because if any of these revelations are made available to the public on a level that people would actually see them on mainstream news,
well, that's going to be tough, because there was a great article from some Newsbusters website. They went through since the Uranium One story really broke, and it wasn't just talked about, but truly broke for a week. They looked at CNN. They covered it for 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Getting the information out, even if there is an investigation of Uranium One, is going to be fucking impossible, because nobody is going to want to talk about it, despite people like Jeff Sessions openly calling for an inquiry. And even if they do have a formal inquiry on Uranium One, it might also be another case of the Bernie Sanders supporters simply take this as another excuse to go after the business Democrats, in which case you see yet more squabble.
Yep.
Speaking of people getting broadside, did you watch that debate between Ted Cruz and Bernie Sanders?
The cruise missile strikes again.
Yeah, I swear to God, Bernie Sanders did this just last year and completely got raffle stomped by Ted Cruz. Why the fuck does he keep on... If he's just going to get raffle stomped, why the fuck does he even get on stage with someone like...
Because liberals and the media are on his side, so they will probably just take a bunch of clips of that out of context and make it look like he's terrible.
Does anybody know if that debate got any traction anywhere? Swade?
Sorry, what?
Sorry, what? The Ted Cruz Bernie Sanders
debate.
Yeah, Ted Cruz fucking stomped all over him, and then everyone tried to play it off as if like they were kind of evenly matched, but Bernie had like a slight advantage, because even no one could even get close to spinning it as Bernie actually beat Cruz because of how fucking badly he got his shit pushed in.
Yeah, Mr. I'm tied in with a bunch of people who are friends of the left. You're a litmus test, man. You're our litmus test. Do we really want to talk about the bullshit that's, speaking of just litmus bullshit, crazy stuff that's been going on these days?
You mean the random acts of violence or the litmus test shit?
No, the random acts of violence.
The truck of peace strikes again.
Yes, it did strike again.
Strikes again in several places, as a matter of fact. Since we fucking put that on there, hasn't there been like 3 different truck attacks? Truck or car related, like terror incidents?
Yeah, and...
But everybody's freaking out about the fucking Spurg Lord who shot up a church.
Yeah, speaking of that, there's been a bunch of church shootings the last couple of, it's the last year. There was the Dylan Roof thing. There was the black guy who walked into the church he used to volunteer at and shot a bunch of people. And then there was the Texas church. Yeah, which suspiciously went unreported. They buried that one in the news and moved on to another story pretty quickly. And then there was the widely reported Texas church shooting. Why the fuck? I'm sitting here just going, everyone's talking about Islamophobia. I don't see people shooting up mosques. I do see a strange infatuation with people shooting up churches these days. I think we need to bring out the word Christianity phobia, or Christian phobia. I know it doesn't roll off the tongue very well, but seriously.
I'm afraid I'm afraid of Western values and Catholicism.
Well, I think these were all Protestant churches, but still.
So I think I know who was behind this one.
The Pope.
It was the fucking Pope again. God damn it, Argentina. Contain yourself.
But in any case, I'm amazed that nobody has put the dots together on, wait one moment, churches keep on getting shot up.
I mean, they're not being shot at the same frequency, honestly. Then again, I wouldn't doubt that they are not because, like, I mean, based on the data we currently have, but the thing is that, like, mass shootings, in general, are really fucking unreported because none of them have any corollary. Like, almost all the time, they have no correlation with one another. And, they get and, like, ones that get reported on by the media are usually ones that are, like, the most ripe for fucking pushing a narrative. So, there's that problem. Sway, did you have anything to add on that? Do you think do you think the Pope is at it again?
I don't want to talk about His Holiness right now. I am tired.
I know him personally. His taste in shoes sucks.
Hey man, I grew up in the Southwest, okay?
Make the papacy great again.
Fucking the papacy was never great. The fuck are you talking about? The fucking papacy was a joke.
I don't know. They were very good at getting heretics killed at one point.
No. That was the Inquisitors and Crusaders, and they did their shit without help from the fucking dude. The Pope, the papacy was responsible for the fucking crusade where they went and attacked their fucking allies over fucking differences in Christian doctrine instead of actually invading the Holy Land.
Mistakes.
If memory serves, that was one of the first.
The Byzantines. That wasn't the church's fault. That was the Venetians. Okay, that was Venice. This is why no one likes Venice. Is they couldn't take them all the way to the Holy Land, but they still demanded payment for the transportation. So they took them to Byzantium and said, "Go raid these fuckers and get it and give us all their money." And the Crusaders were like, "Whatever, I came all this way, I might as well," and did it. That wasn't the church's fault. That was just a logistical problem and trusting people that live in fucking Venice.
Venetians re.
Well, they could have continued their crusade all the way to fucking Mecca. Maybe we'd be not having to discuss the next topic, which is, God damn it, Saudi Arabia. Holy fuck.
I mean, look, man, all I'm going to say in my defense of that is a butterfly effect. But
so,
Saudi Arabia,
do you guys want to listen to me ramble for 15 minutes on this one?
No. Swade, you ramble for 15 minutes in this one. Garam has rambled enough. I'm putting my foot down.
I'm very good at rambling.
I'm putting my foot down, Garam.
Are right now having a very quiet civil war, a very quiet shadow war in their government and royal family, where they're working to remove those elements that were pushing really hard for Clinton and therefore would be uncooperative with the new presidency. And that's a lot of why Trump was so well received when he went there compared to, say, Obama, is because they were putting more effort into being polite because this was not expected, and they're having to not only save face, but try and get on the good side of someone who they were actively opposing several months previously.
Because it seems to be that they're getting more and more self-aware of the fact that, like, their position of power is very precarious.
And that's one of the leading reasons why the king of Saudi Arabia, King Salman, decided to change the rules of succession. So succession in Saudi Arabia normally goes to the oldest immediate male family member.
Yeah, the eldest crown prince.
Yes, so when Saudi Arabia's king would die, it would go to his brother. And he changed the rule, saying, no, it's going to go to my son. And his son is, for Saudi Arabia, considered quite liberal, both socially, politically, and commercially. He's apparently one of the big guys behind the, hey, let's let women drive. I wouldn't be too surprised if in the next couple of years if you see female guardianship go the way of the dodo.
I mean, I don't think that's going to happen, just because what a lot of people don't fucking talk about as far as this goes, mostly because of feminists, is that like whenever there's an Islamic tradition that is that seems to be hyper protective of women or something, every time like there's a country, and this has happened in Iran before, where they're like, maybe we shouldn't do this. There's always a fucking lobby of upper class women that are like, no, we need this to remain. This is fine. This is totally fine, because it's the same shit with suffragists and barristers, where it's like, they don't mind having no freedom because there's nothing really for them to do anyway, and they still get a free chauffeur. I mean, I'm not trying to make a dumb women driver joke, but the thing is that you probably also have, like, there's some bureaucrats that are probably going to be like, no, this is a dumb idea, because the first thing that's going to happen is they're going to have this massive fucking, like, shit show of infrastructure, where, like, they're going to have this massive infrastructural shit show as soon as anything gets passed like that, because then you have, like, half the population suddenly needs driver's licenses, or whatever their equivalent is.
I'm not so convinced about that one. Just like I'm not convinced this is just purely contained to just Saudi Arabia.
Well, it's not. The rest of the Middle East has slowly been liberalizing over the last 10 or so years.
Well, they've taken a massive step back recently.
Well,
but I'm more talking about...
I don't think that it's them so much as, like, that's ISIS. Because, like, the Kurds are still Kurds. Most of the Iraqis are still just like, can we please stop being bombed? Most of the Yemenis are still like, look, we understand that our entire country is, like, the subcontinent's equivalent of a used car sales lot. But, like, can we steer... Like, yeah, Yemen and Jordan seriously want to stop being the go-betweens for everything. Like, the only countries that are, like, really there that are still being, like, hyper-retarded, like, super Islamic about everything and following through with, like, religious doctrine in state legislature and stuff, and then letting that influence all of everything that they're doing while the rest of their population is in support of it, are, like, Egypt and... are like Egypt, Saudi Arabia to a lesser extent, and some of the and some of the other, like, more quote unquote stable countries there that haven't been in, like, that haven't been dealing with as much of a shit show.
Speaking of, I really feel like this is something also to do with Iran, of all things. Because, okay, think about right before this shit show started, right before the Night of Long Knives, there was the alleged Iranian missile launched at the Saudi Arabian capital.
Which was still weird, because it's allegedly Iranian, allegedly launched from allegedly Yemen.
Yes, and I'm sitting there going, okay, so you allegedly have to get this alleged missile into alleged Yemen, and don't you allegedly have a blockade of Yemen?
Yeah. Like,
so, okay, how does that work? Either your blockade isn't really much of a blockade. Now you've got other problems, like, how the fuck do you even launch a ballistic missile? You've got to have infrastructure. You've got to have technicians.
They probably fired it from the Yemeni border at themselves, and then just, like, they had their intelligence infrastructure got cross-wired, and they were like, oh, it was Iranian. And it's like, what the fuck is Iran doing in Yemen?
Well,
Iran can't operate anywhere outside of Iran.
Well, Iran is supporting the Yemenis rebels.
This is true.
But again, it doesn't solve the question of how the fuck do you get an entire ballistic missile past everyone and no one.
All right, that's relatively easy for, like, a state entity. The thing is more is that, like, what incentive does Iran have that when they're dealing with putting out all these other fires to just suddenly be like, yeah, now we're gonna go fucking kick another hornet hive?
That's exactly what I was about to say is how does this benefit Iran? This would be fucking retarded. And the Iranians are not fucking retarded.
But, well, I mean, hang on, I have to play devil's advocate for, hyper conservative Americans. They're Muslims, therefore retarded. Of course, they do something stupid like this.
Her. Well, they've been able to
sway
despite
her with us.
I think Suede is dead.
No, I'm
Long
here.
live the new Suede.
I'm here. I'm just thinking.
I will be the new Suede.
No,
I will be both your best friend and your worst enemy, Garam.
Do I have to be Zoom now?
No, you get to be nothing. Kicks from channel. But
this happened right before the Night of the Long Knives, and I don't think it's a fucking coincidence.
yeah, 11 princes removed on corruption charges. There was 1,200 accounts
I
frozen.
think the number I think has gone up since then.
Yeah.
1,200 accounts frozen. The number.
Yeah, and then there was the shit show in Lebanon where it's and then suddenly Lebanon's involved in this too, and it's what the fuck are you guys doing?
And that really, I think, confirms that the Iranians have something to do with everything that the fuck is going on. Now, I really do have to ramble on this one because I know more about this than you guys do. Lebanese politics is kind of fucking complicated.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I told you to fucking put that on there because I was I was being a faggot, a nationalist, so I'm Garam's Canadian, he must know shit about Lebanon.
Well, not really.
That makes sense, yeah.
I mean, it does.
Yeah,
Lebanon is to Canada what Morocco is to the U.S.
Oh, okay.
You guys have a shitload of Lebanese
Christians and Jews mostly.
Yeah, that are Canada's pretty nice.
Well, we took in, because of the Lebanese Civil War, we took in a large number of Christian and Jewish refugees from Lebanon. So, notably, Gad Saad is a refugee from Lebanon.
Gad Saad.
Yeah, as I said, because they're from a culture that is generally, follows the rules, respects the laws of the land, they're productive workers. It was one of those, this was a smart population to bring into the country. Whereas I would say a lot of the refugees we're now taking in, I look at them and I go, not really going to be the most successful people in our country.
Well, I mean, the majority of refugees that most people are taking in are actually are not even from the Middle East anymore. The majority of them are like Sudanese and Congolese.
Yeah, and those. I mean, you look at those places, and it's clear they do not have a culture that is conducive to being successful in the West. Western civilization is really fucking complicated. You need a strong scholastic tradition, blah, blah, blah. But anyways, back to Lebanon. Lebanon politically is divided into two major factions. There's the Hezbollah and Iranian-backed faction of Shiites, and they're held in check by an alliance of Sunni Christians and Jews. The head party of this is called the Future Movement Party, and it's led by the former Prime Minister, Saud Hariri, the fellow who fled Lebanon citing a assassination plot which he blames on Hezbollah, Iran.
Yeah.
So they have a power-sharing arrangement between them and the Shiites and their Iranian allies. So the Shiites get the presidency, and the Sunnis and their allies get the prime ministership. And hopefully that holds both powers in check. However, with the abdication of Saud Hariri, it's really unknown politically who has the power in Lebanon, and we might have just watched an effective coup in Lebanon. Time will tell to see who
so effective we didn't
now
even
has
notice.
the balance of power. And this is why Arabia is now saying that Lebanon has declared war on them, because Saudi Arabia was a very close ally of the Future Movement, from what I can gather.
Yeah.
Of course, being Sunni, and trying to check the Iranians in the region. This gives Iran yet more control. Now Iran is in control of Syria and Lebanon.
Which is still hilarious, because Iran is still the fucking underdog in this scenario.
And that's where I say do not underestimate the Iranians. It's clear they're very intelligent politically, and they know how to gain power.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be too surprised if the Iranian next target is further control of Egypt. Or Jordan would be the other one, but I'm suspicious of Jordan. They have a very strong monarchy that has a passive relationship with the Israelis, but
the thing about Jordan is that Jordan, because of how Jordan is the most stable of those countries there. That's not kind of a power unto itself. It's still a relatively minor country, but because of how what I know of it, and I don't know too much, but what I know of it is that Jordan, especially due to the war on terror, is basically the West's eyes and ears in the Middle East. Because while we could say, oh, we're going to get all of our information from Israel, they're our greatest ally, yada, 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 rhetoric. The thing is that, Jordan is they're the guys in the background that go, yeah, no, the Israelis didn't give you the whole story on this, or this, their intel on this is correct, their intel on that is off. And, because basically, the rest of the West, namely the U.S., basically just co-ops with Jordanian intelligence, and it's just here, you guys continue keeping your country stable, we'll give you funding for this stuff. But we need you, but in the meantime, we're going to need you to, corroborate all of our intel and all this other stuff. And, Jordan, to their credit, does a pretty good job of that. Especially considering that, I would bet that the majority of the bad intel we've ever gotten from them is probably just due to the CIA being fucking retarded.
Or the CIA hearing something they want to hear and just saying it's true without properly...
The CIA hearing something that is convenient to be true for them.
And then they feed it to local journalists that say it's true, and then they deny that the journalists heard it from them, and then the journalists post uncited reports about this.
Yeah,
several different generals mobilized for war in a peacekeeping scenario, quote unquote, and then the CIA, and then a different later, and then 1 year later, a different CIA operative goes and tells everybody that journalist is a fucking idiot. We didn't know any of this. Several
years later, that journalist says that he never said it to begin with,
and now I hate Craig Hedges so much.
I know.
So you can just imagine from Saudi Arabia's perspective right now is they're watching Iran consolidate in Syria. Now they got Lebanon. They're slowly taking over Iraq. They've got Yemen. They've got their fingers in Egypt. You can imagine from Saudi Arabia's perspective, they're slowly being encircled by Iran. And they're losing political control in the region. Yeah. For the Saudis, I wouldn't be too surprised if the Saudis are starting to get fucking desperate.
They're desperate enough that Salman went to Moscow, which is fucking really weird.
Yes, and I think the Saudi Arabians are starting to look
Closes
around.
Doors, Putin. There's waving, everyone's smiling, there's handshaking. Closes doors, immediately looks at Putin, tears in his eyes. Please.
Fucking hell. Which is weird because the Russians are allies to Iran and Syria, and I'm like, oh god. But I still don't think this is an internal struggle between the U.S. I don't think this is a geopolitical struggle between the U.S. and Russia. I don't think the U.S. and Russia would benefit from a shooting war between Iran and Saudi Arabia. I think this is an internal struggle between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Iran is slowly growing its sphere of influence. Saudi Arabia is losing its sphere of influence. And here is the kicker. Saudi Arabia's money situation.
Yep.
They've been losing billions and billions of... they still have a surplus, but their surplus has been decreasing at a ever-expanding rate. And that's because the Saudi oil, which is the basis of their power, has been becoming less and less relevant. So
that is actually really complicated, honestly.
That's really complicated.
Because the thing is that initially we've never actually needed Saudi oil. The U.S. has always kind of maintained a monopoly on being the number one consumer of it to maintain
strategic stockpile.
Strategic stockpiling. And like strategic reserves and, you know, realpolitik and all that other junk. And like the U.S. has always had like natural gas and its own oil refinery capability in country that far surpassed what like Saudi can give us at the price. Like even if we don't have like, you know, like Saudi Arabia still has like the largest stock, like is sitting on the largest oil reserve in the crust of the earth aside from like Venezuela in the world.
Yeah.
But like the thing is that like number 3 to that is now Texas.
Yep.
Yes. And on top of that, we're getting into fracking and shale oil, which is like those are both bullshit. And I mean, 10 years ago, if a Canadian said the word tar sands, there would immediately be like a fucking like audience laugh track. But
well, 10 years ago, no, the tar sands were a very real thing, but the price
no, tar sands have always been a real thing. It's just tar sands up until now were always like, this is a dumb idea, guys. This costs more money to pump out than we could possibly ever make from it.
Yes, but the prices have been coming down. If you said 10 years ago that this is always going to be a great source of money, people would have laughed at you because of the cost, but the cost has been coming down.
Well, all right.
Just like as the fracking is...
I worded that poorly because like 10 years ago they would have laughed at it, but the thing was that tar sands have been like notoriously inefficient since the fucking 40s. But aside from that, like the thing is that I think it's also complicated by the fact that like the Trump presidency doesn't seem to want to play ball the same way as all the previous presidencies did with like Israel and Saudi Arabia. And on top of that, the economic impetus for everything else is that like the rest of the West is becoming so corporatized that it's more than likely that there's going to be a ton of different corporate entities that deal with the oil market that are just going to fucking just say, you know, I know that we're fucking with the government and government contractors and like mega corporations that could probably squash us, but there's like 30 million of us and we all have our own little fracking posts. Why don't we just, you know, stop giving a shit about the rules? And like there's kind of like this unspoken there's these like unspoken like orders of business etiquette that are being violated by like companies left and right these days to do shit like that. I mean, do I sound somewhat on point here?
Yeah. It's just Saudi Arabia right now is being squeezed on all sides.
Yep.
And it sounds like they're getting fucking desperate, and they're realizing that keeping things going the way they've been going is not going to work for much longer, and they need to find another model to work off. And because they're so, for instance, they're so fervently religious, it's holding them back, and they need to modernize so just to fucking survive. Because I'm not sure they can keep this up for much longer. Much longer geopolitically, I'm talking like 20, 30 years. I'm not sure they can keep this up for another 20, 30 years.
You put decades on the outline. I think it's funny.
Yes. Yes, they're not going to run out of money tomorrow. They're not going to run out of oil tomorrow. However,
I know, but you're saying like 500 years, and then things will change.
No, like they're not going to run out of money tomorrow. But the thing is that their money isn't really in the form of liquid currency so much. A lot of their money is just oil futures. They sell oil, and they use the money to buy oil futures for the oil they're going to sell later. Or rather, they sell oil futures to people that are going to buy their oil. And then, of course, because they're OPEC, they can manipulate the price of oil, and then based on how they know they're going to manipulate the price, then they can do insider trading and so on.
And turn a massive profit in the process.
But so much of their money being tied up, and like it's not just their income, but so much of their money just continues to move forward. Like they make profits one year and then they invest it in the next year. Or they waste it all on like frivolous luxuries, as Saudi royalty is wont to do.
Yep.
Attacking their yearly income is very close to directly attacking their savings or directly attacking their total wealth, because their total wealth fluctuates based on how they do year to year. It's not like they just take their profits from one year and just set them aside. They're too far invested in the industry to quickly move money out of it and put it in something else where it won't be affected by like decreasing oil prices and so on. I'm not really sure what I'm trying.
Or the changing oil market, as it's looking like the petrodollars years are numbered at this point between the Russians and Chinese.
Like, obviously, they have billions of dollars in savings, sure. But that's nothing compared to how much money they actually have that's almost completely tied up in their ability to sell oil year to year, and not their profit, just their revenue. Like, so much of the net worth of the Saudis is just their operating, is just like the revenue they're making rather than the profit they're making. And then if you have all these other expenses year to year, they're not making all that much money. And if they start losing money, then how much money they lose, and if they dip below profit into loss, that's how much their actual net worth will kind of drop.
Yeah.
I'm not an accountant or like a finance expert, but so I don't really know how to phrase it, but that's kind of the issue, is like their money's just too tied up in oil. They can't really survive without it if it happens fast enough that the rug gets pulled out from under them.
It's non-liquid capital.
They won't recover. They haven't invested their capital enough in anything else.
Yep, it's non-liquid capital.
What's the term? Dutch disease? When you become your economy becomes too dependent on a single export.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of people who's far less speculation on this one, Mugabe. Holy shit!
Oh boy.
There's the other coup that's been going on.
Welcome to Africa. Everything sucks.
The land of AIDS, malaria, and now Black Plague.
And Madagascar, the fall of Madagascar. God damn. So, we should probably run through this really fast because information is sparse. Mugabe and his wife got kicked out of their party, out of the party that was in power. And then the military, like within a few days of that, he decried them and tried to, he fired his vice president. And as soon as he fired his vice president, several military units started storming the capital and blocking off all the major roadways.
And seized control of the radio station.
And this is going on amidst...
And TV station.
Yeah, this is going on amidst, like, a giant Ebola breakout that apparently... Like, there's apparently a modern, a modern strain of the Black Plague sweeping through the east coast of Africa. That, like, apparently started in Madagascar.
I remember hearing something about that. That yes, they've got the Black Plague in Madagascar because the situation
and like they didn't quarantine Madagascar properly, so like apparently it spread through, it spread through the coastline, and then there was people migrated all the way to fucking like Kenya from there, and then had and it's starting to spread in like Kenya's west coast next to, I believe it's Lake Victoria, the really big lake they have there. Like it's spread through Mozambique, Tanzania, Kenya, and then Somalia, and then it's hit other places obviously, but like it spread to Kenya's like one of the points of highest population density in South Central Africa, and now, like, there's there's this shit going on in Zimbabwe.
Wait, it spread to Kenya, but not to like Uganda?
It's in Uganda. It's in Uganda and Kenya, all around. Apparently, it's spreading there. I think the Ebola breakout is not as bad as people said, because it's like an Ebola breakout of 20 people is makes the world shit their pants. That the WHO immediately drops their shit if they hear 5 people have Ebola.
Yeah, it's the fucking game where Madagascar just closes borders.
Yeah,
immediately.
But Madagascar was supposed to close its borders immediately, and somehow it still spread. Yeah, it spread to Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Swaziland, parts of North South Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda, all around, just all of the fucking population dense areas around Lake Victoria, and and even amidst this, that's not even all of the shit. That's this is going on while their unemployment. Their unemployment rate has now reached 84%. And then in the middle of and even in the middle of that, South Africa, there's all of the white people are literally the white people are doing a mass migration out of South Africa.
I do not blame them. There's been a bunch of murders of white farmers, and the government's done fucking nothing.
Yeah, because I think the government was behind it.
The government's openly talked about basically taking the land,
nationalizing the land. But instead of, it's they don't. It's not like Western nationalization where it's here we're fucking you over, but eminent domain guarantees you some money. It was the government paid a bunch of death squads to go and fucking torch these places, and then took the land for their own groups that then immediately mismanaged them, so they kept sending more, they kept pushing these squads further. And then the government did nothing about it because they're saying, oh, well, that's just banditry. It's just brigands in the woods. This is fucking highwaymen from France. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Just when everyone knows that Mugabe's been talking about this shit, and it's okay, listen, asshole, you don't get to talk about forcing whites off their land simply because of the color of their skin.
Well, that was kind of the show, because Mugabe talked about that.
Start showing up dead.
Well, yeah, Mugabe talked about that in Zimbabwe, and then South Africa did essentially the same shit, but it was totally quiet. Nelson Mandela and the rest of the administration there didn't say shit. There's been next to no official statements about South Africa and what's going on there. But
nobody in the news wants to talk about it because apparently you can't be racist against white people.
Yeah, so
demonstrating in South Africa
it's
that it's
okay
possible.
To be white, Garam. It's okay to be white.
How dare you?
Suede, you better It's okay to be white, Suede.
That feel when not okay.
Speaking of not okay, man.
I'm just
going back to.
We gotta just say something about that real quick. We don't have to talk about this. It's been talked to death. I'm just saying I appreciate how subtle it was that they just said it's okay to be white, and then immediately everybody fucking went into hysterics about it.
Yeah, it's a very, very subtle jab at people. They know what it implies. The people posting it, posting the posters, know what it implies. But for people outside of that, very tense little, subgroup of people where they're pushing back and forth, just for, the normal person seeing it, it's just completely okay, what? And then they see all the pushback against it, and they don't understand the context for it. So it's very clever. It was very clever. It exploited the psychology of the people they were using it against very well.
Yep.
It also gives... Tim Pool's been talking about it, and I think he's right, is that 4chan now basically can do whatever the fuck it wants, and it can manipulate the mainstream media.
I mean...
So think about the entire
4chan is not nearly that intelligent or organized anymore, though.
No,
Like, this is not fucking 4chan at its height. This is 4chan
at the shadow of its former self, and it can still get things like the OK sign being considered white power, the peace sign, where you two fingers upstretched is two genders, and watches people freak the fuck out.
Yep.
And this is, yes, a shadow of 4chan's former self, and the media is just basically handing the narrative to a bunch of trolls on the internet, and they're being played like a fiddle. It's unbelievable to watch a bunch of jackasses on the internet own mainstream media companies with, tens of thousands of employees, let's say, and what, nobody in the company went, hey, this is retarded?
Nope, nobody.
So, you know what else is retarded? People continuing to invest money in fucking Tesla.
Yep. We were going to have to talk about this.
God damn. Tesla has turned into a flaming dumpster fire of a company. Its stock prices should be devalued to junk status.
I mean, it was always kind of a dumpster fire because the entire thing was a meme to begin with. But I'm going to advocate my talking time to this to Suede. Suede, tell us about how Mr. Honorary Engineering Degree is a piece of shit once again. In the most masterfully eloquent way you always do.
Which one? Sorry.
Elon Musk. Mr. Honorary Engineering Degree, I'm an inventor.
Elon Musk is very good at what people that work in technology call investor story time. It's where you tell investors how much money they're going to make if they invest in you. You tell them a story, and then because they invest a lot of money in you, you get to cite how much money you have as evidence that they're going to make even more money because of how wealthy your country, how wealthy your company is, if only more investors will invest more money. And he is very good at this. He's very good at getting people to give money to things that won't go anywhere because he's a talented salesman.
But that was very apparent at his latest unveiling of their new Sportster and semi-truck.
But the technologies he promises...
That semi is a fucking joke.
The solutions that he tries to sell are just bullshit, ultimately. He knows that they're bullshit. He understands this very well. What he hopes to do, in most cases, is to get enough money that he can coast by and delay having to admit they're bullshit for as long as possible until maybe they won't be bullshit.
So a great example of that that's come up recently is their super automated factory of the future, which is supposed to produce cars like their Model 3. And it's completely automated, and they've had tours and videos posted of this entire factory floor, and there's like 5 employees supervising the machines. Car manufacturing of the future. They've only been able to produce, something like 440 was the last number I saw, of its new Model 3 vehicles this year. At this point, they were supposed to have produced 1,200 on this assembly line. Why the fuck are they having so much trouble? Well, video of them, showing off their uber cool plant demonstrates likely what's going on inside of the company and why being able to follow through on your promises of production and capability probably is impossible for this company. So the video in particularly showed welding on the body of a presumably, I'm assuming Model 3 or Model S or something. It was a car. And my God, there were sparks flying everywhere. And this was basically electronic welding, so a bit like a stud welding process. You use electricity to generate current, which produces heat because of the resistance.
I fucking hate arc welding.
Yeah, anyways.
I learned how to arc weld, and then after that I learned how to weld with acetylene. And you know what? I'll take a risk of me blowing myself up any day over the fucking pain in the ass. The utter pain in the ass, and arc welding is so fucking... Ugh.
It's much more. It's much more complicated than just the usual acetylene welding.
Yeah, it also requires you to fucking like develop monk-like senses of blind sense to properly do it.
But what was clearly shown is they had not tuned the settings in properly, and the fact that they were showing this off in full production suggested that they may not understand how that manufacturing process works. So they have this super automated factory. They don't understand the manufacturing processes being used. So that might explain why they're at like a third of the production they should be at. But it also shows, to Swade's comment, one of the problems I have with them is they keep on making these grandiose promises, and it's like they haven't bothered investing in actually the capacity they need to follow through on those promises. So, and then they launch this, whenever they get caught in a big PR debacle for their failures, they just release some new product and they go, oh, look, invest fucking more money in us as we continue to be incapable of producing anything.
Yeah, and just, like, and then the fucking management horror stories they've been having is just totally fucking bullshit, because, like, I mean...
Now they have 100 people coming forward saying that they've been sexually harassed.
Yeah, the sexual harassment, the energy credit shit that's going on that's causing them to lose employees, and then the management exodus. And
yes,
like,
the energy credits that have now been cut from the U.S. federal budget.
As a guy who'd like to think that they understand a thing or two about how corporations operate and management structures in general, how fucking inefficient and retarded they are in general, that is a tremendous red flag. Because generally the first people that get shafted and usually start the downfall that lasts way longer than it should with most corporations like this are like the actual, like, you know, assembly line workers and everything else. Management usually is insulated from bad decisions, and they'll bitch and they'll whine, but and sometimes HR will fuck with them. But most of the time, they're people that are like, they're these spoiled bitches that are like, oh, I have a business degree. I get to fucking run a factory even though I have no idea how to weld and have no idea what the common worker's actually dealing with. But because I'm very good at not listening to their problems, my boss thinks that I'm a valuable tool. And it's like that's usually how it works in a lot of companies, and I know you both know this. You both have seen it in your own like spheres, and saying that like the management is like it's bad enough, it's poorly mismanaged enough and poorly funded enough that management are quitting en masse from this place, in addition to all the sexual harassment shit that may or may not be real things. Because that's generally what happens with sexual harassment, is like half the time it's actual sexual harassment, the other half of the time it's office politics, where it's being used as a cudgel to silence people because HR departments have way too much power. But the thing is like, back to the point I was making, if there's management actually leaving voluntarily the company in numbers like that, that means that like their upper staff, like the actual executive staff, chief operating officer, chief financial officer, like, they are fucking stupid. They must be monumentally incompetent to cause that to happen. Because usually the kludge just flows downward and nobody notices how bad shit is for like 10 or 20 years with most corporations that aren't even run competently today. Do I, once again, do I sound like off base here or something? Like,
not entirely, no.
Swade?
No.
Alright, thanks guys. Really helps my self-esteem there. But, I don't know. If you think that's dead, Garam, do we want to talk about Discord?
Oh God, do we fucking have to talk about
everybody else has done better stuff on this. Allison Tiemann, especially of Honey Badger Radio, did a better video on this because NBC is fucking gay and thinks that they can, using Microsoft clip art, they can convince baby boomers that our chat client is responsible for the rise of neo-Nazism.
So I haven't watched her video, and I'm unfamiliar with the NBC story. So can you give me an overview of that one? And
literally, they declared that gamers and Gamergate were responsible for the rise of the alt-right, and the method by which the alt-right has risen, quote unquote, is through Discord and that it's all Discord's fault. And their evidence of this was literally them putting they had an icon that was a game controller, and then an icon that was Discord, and then an icon that was like a KKK member, and they just drew a line between them, and just the reporter talked over that image, and that was essentially what they were trying to. It's like the most obvious propaganda techniques I've ever fucking seen employed.
That was it.
Yes.
That was all the evidence
they had no
provided.
Citations. They claimed that they made reference to Gamergate. They said it was a gamer thing. Like I posted the YouTube of the thing, and that video is like ridiculously downvoted. Like that video has it has 145,000 views, it has 419 likes, it has 46,000 dislikes.
Damn.
And they were blaming like leading up to the Charlottesville rallies, alt-right organizers used a messaging service called Discord, originally created for video gamers. This is the latest in the history between the alt-right and the gaming community. The gaming community.
Like there's one gaming community.
We already made a subconscious Metal Gear Solid reference. If we have any fans, and I'm sure we have none, that I really hope that they make a fucking like gaming community meme. Like they are getting fucking the shit kicked out of them for this. Hang on, I'm gonna just post you guys like one of the people, like this guy. I don't know who he is. He looks like a faggot. But the thumbnail to his video on this is the thumbnail to his video on this is the image that NBC used. Look at that shit.
Amazing. That's okay. Look, we drew lines between two different things.
I mean, if they really wanted to find
glass of water, line going to Hitler, line going to Trump.
If they really wanted to find shit to link, like I've encountered some people on Discord that, yes, I mean, if you recorded them and took pictures, screen caps of what they were posting, yes, you could make the argument very easily that there are alt-right people on Discord.
I mean,
you don't need to make the argument. It's
but like
there are tons of
when
like,
there is
abundantly
available evidence, and that is the best they can fucking do, dude. At least do some fucking research first.
It's a hit piece. If they did research, they wouldn't be able to lie through their teeth about it.
Yep.
Well, they wouldn't have to lie through their teeth if they actually did any research.
Well, they wouldn't have to lie through their about there being people on Discord that are like alt-right. But they wouldn't be able to, like, plausibly deny the fact that there are people that are completely opposed to those same people on the same exact platform.
It's just a platform. I don't isn't Discord like we're only really talking about this because we use Discord itself, so we kind of have to be like, hey, Discord, we're not gonna fucking let you get destroyed. You have a pretty decent platform, honestly. I'd rather not go back to fucking... Yeah, it's pretty okay. I'm
a little bit mad about Nitro, but otherwise it's fine.
Yeah, I'm a little bit mad about their fucking, like, you know, we're gonna do censorship trials and shit like that. No, fuck off.
Yeah.
But, like, dude, I don't want to go back to fucking bootleg Skype. IRC. Fuck Skype. I'm not going back to it. I have it to talk to... Like, I have it now because I needed to talk to, oh god, Gare, I'm gone.
No,
I have Skype now because I needed to talk to Son of Tiamat, who I'm still waiting to hear back from. But, like, fuck Skype. I don't want to go back to it. AIM is dead, and I'm certainly not gonna fucking bring back up bullshit like bootleg fucking IRC chats and then TeamSpeak again.
Come on, man. Don't you want to use TeamSpeak for podcasts like the good old days?
Like the good old... Fucking shoot me in the mouth. We record on server with WAV. No!
Good work.
Buddy has been disconnected from your life.
Oh my god.
This is...
But anyway, Discord as it stands now is a decent platform. I don't want to see it destroyed. And like
I don't want to see it like
I know
they've been
did,
where it just has like feature creep.
Yeah, they've been giving into modern narratives about shit and everything with their dumb like market chat is NSFW and stuff now because if you don't you'll get in trouble. Like, yeah, fuck, they have that shit, but like, aren't they based out of China or something? Like, aren't they relatively out of the hipster loop enough that they would be a fucking target of a hit piece like this? Because this is just flatly ridiculous. Like, imagine they trying to pull this shit if Discord never came up and people still use Skype. Like, Microsoft would just laugh. Microsoft would be there like, do you seriously think you're gonna fucking blame us for this? Except, wait, no, that's not actually what happened. Microsoft would be like, oh boy, we better crack down and like start fucking, like, data mining people via Skype, which, I mean, they already do. And then, creating a terrorist blacklist that they send to people because they're like, link your Skype with Facebook.
Like, what I really like is that you have, like, people doing, like, the fucking Wikipedia edits for Discord, where it's like, yeah, the alt-right uses this, and there's, like, a whole fucking section. Like, for a couple days after this news report came out, like, there was a section of the fucking Wikipedia page for Discord that was, like, twice the length of the entire rest of the page combined. That was just, the alt-right uses this for whatever.
Yeah.
And, they've slowly trimmed it down since then. But it's just hilarious that, like, every time, every single time the legacy media, like, publishes a hit piece on something they actually don't understand at all, like, they go out of their way to edit Wikipedia and like Urban Dictionary and other websites to support their narrative, as if that will like affect as if that will change the opinions of people that actually know what the fuck is going on.
I feel like this is exactly how Gamergate got started to begin with. Just the media shitting on gamers.
No. That was how Gamergate got exacerbated. Gamergate was a perfect storm because, and I mean, I'm gonna have to bring him up again because I hate him and he's a retard who is like the best face I can point to of face of people that like tried to pretend that they were above the entire conflict. But Razorfist and people like him, like Razorfist did a series of videos where he talked about the downfall of gaming media and then acted like Gamergate was 4chan being late to the party. When it's like, no, you obviously don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, Gamergate started entirely because V had been pissed off about shitty, unethical business practices in the video game community, like, just the video game market in general, for, like, 2 decades. Like, it had been creeping in since, like, fucking, like, 99. And, and it got out of control when you started having stuff like, Game Informer is owned by GameSpot, but people act like it's a actual source of game reviews and journalism and criticism. And then you have IGN, which was functionally owned by EA, and all this other shit going on. And they had been complaining about that relatively quietly because they still stayed on their own boards then. About that forever. Nobody paid attention to them because, everybody else is a retard that thinks 4chan is just some hive of scum and villainy and has never produced anything of value at all because they're dumb. And then, like, Gamergate happened when V got a hold of, like, they started hearing about the Zoe Quinn shit. Yeah. With, that her ex-boyfriend had posted about the whole thing. Because of Internet Aristocrat at the time, currently Mr. Medicare, posted a video. And then Mundane Matt posted a video similar to that. Mundane Matt got fucking shut down immediately for it. And that was what the thing happened. It was a bunch of hipsters in their journalist community doubling down on, like, people didn't, like, they kept trying to act like it was about the drama of, a woman cheating on her boyfriend. Nobody cared about her cheating on her boyfriend. I mean, that's fucked up to say, but nobody gave a shit. Nobody gave a shit that she cheated on him with 5 different people. It was that all 5 of those people turned out to be major influencers in game media, and she had recently received several awards from some of them, and all this other stuff, and like her game was on the front page of Steam and everything, and nobody was buying it, and they were wondering what the fuck was going on with that. And
then they wonder why. And then after that, what was the fucking reaction? It
was the strike. They basically shit all over gamers.
Yeah, the organizations that were implemented in this corruption turned around and started shitting on the people who were saying, hey, it looks like you have some super shady corrupt shit going on within your organization. You should look into that.
Yeah, it was like this human resources tier, like, oh, we'll take that under advisement, fire him. And except they're like, oh wait, these are our customers. We can't just fire them. Yes, we can. And the best way to summarize what happened after that was just these fucking dipshits doubling down on the Streisand effect for fucking over 2 years. And like, I mean, I could go on a rant about how, like, you know, Sargon and all the other people that got involved in and later ruined everything. But like, as far as that goes, like, there was a lot of other bullshit going on there. There was the fucking there was all the other media ties. There was the bullshit with fucking Common Core. There was the shenanigans. There was the shenanigans going on with, like, another one of the dumb, erroneous subcontractors to the Department of Defense that was involved with that. Like, all this dumb shit. And, like, all of that went by the wayside for various reasons that eventually I'll do a giant rant on and then get told I'm too much of a spurg and nobody listened to me, but whatever. Like, all that went by the wayside. Gamergate has functionally been dead. There's still some people that think it's going on and fighting it on their own board of 8chan, but, like, you know, it's hardly talked about anymore. And so, like, people like NBC and everything are like, oh yeah, it's okay if we go over and start kicking this fucking hornet's nest again.
Right, like that wasn't painful enough last time, you dumbasses.
Yeah, like...
Please do it, because what's going to happen is the exact same thing that would happen last time. They get their ass handed. Yeah. Just do it. And we got more ammunition this time. I mean, just look at what's going on with the Battlefront right now and the demonetization.
Oh, yeah. That it's not even just the demonetization or the refusal of refunds.
It's demonetization.
It's the fact that Steam has maneuvered, like, Valve has maneuvered itself into a position where they're now counter-lobbying against other fucking video game developers and publishers that do the same unethical business practices, but in a more stupid way. And now EA and, both EA and Blizzard are being investigated for gambling corruption by the fucking gaming, the fucking gaming commission because of loot crates and shit. And they keep trying to point to Valve, like, they did the same shit, and Valve was like, no, we internally monitored all this stuff, and we kept giving our data to the gaming commission. We made sure that none of our stuff was gambling. You motherfuckers did otherwise. The entire shit that went on with, what's his dick? The pack of retards that were running fucking gambling circuits off of their own website and cheating and like using edited footage to cheat people into believing that they were selling good keys to loot crates for CSGO like forever ago. Like, those people all got shut down with Valve in cooperation with it. And now EA and I think Activision to a lesser extent.
Overwatch.
Yeah, Blizzard Activision Blizzard are all getting under the fire for this, and they're trying to point fingers away from it. And then we have this in the midst of fucking the mainstream media that's trying to fucking, like, start fucking with gamers again. It's like,
yeah,
like, they think they can get away with this because this worked in the 80s. They think that because the Satanic Panic fucking killed D&D once, that, like, you know, that an entertainment-based community, a group of people that aren't aligned by politics, but because they have a shared form of medium, are easily fucking cowed.
The thing with the D&D panic in the 80s was that then it was mostly, like, teenagers, and the concerned moms could actually control whether or not the kids actually managed to, like whether or not the kids could actually play D&D.
Yeah,
like, it was mostly high schoolers and like college freshmen.
Yeah, it was the fucking, like, last gasp of the fucking Christian right trying to push against everything and then deciding to settle on fucking with kids. And because of that, the media... The lesson the media learned from that wasn't, fucking with these people's a dumb idea. It was, fucking with these people is easy. We could totally get away with this.
Yeah, but now they've extended that, and the people that were involved with that kind of bullshit have gotten older. Like, they're baby boomers, they've gotten older, they don't understand things anymore. They don't see the difference between doing that to, like, high school students and, like, early college students and doing it to guys that are, like, in their early to mid-20s, which is, like, most gamers.
Yep. They
don't see the difference. They don't realize how it's a completely different situation, and you're going to get way more backlash from this. Not only that, but they don't understand how much, like, the increasing connectivity and how the internet has weakened their ability to control the narrative is going to make it fall apart extremely quickly.
Yeah.
Like,
or at least we hope.
All the backlash against, like, you know, alternative media and alternative, like, information sharing is just because they're afraid that they don't get to control the narrative anymore, and they've never been in a situation where they couldn't just meme their way out of, like, they couldn't just meme their way to success by saying whatever they want and, like, cooperating and like, conspiring to push a certain narrative. Like, like, you're just seeing... You're seeing the desperation of people that are very quickly falling out of power and don't have a lot of time left, and have never been in a situation where that was actually a risk before, and they don't know how to deal with it.
Yep.
Like, spending their whole lives and, like, their whole careers trying to push their way to the top of the pyramid, only to find that by the time they have, like, the ocean's, like the ocean has risen up to swallow it. They've wasted their whole lives trying to get power that won't matter very soon.
Cannot happen soon enough.
Yep.
Seriously. I mean, what has the media accomplished that's really great for society right now? Other than pissing everyone off.
No, I really can't think of anything. No, like, I don't even have a backhanded compliment for them. It's fucking great.
Why are they completely collapsing on themselves? Because they're completely incompetent, and they've done no good for anyone for years and years and years and years now. Yeah, you got power. Congratulations. How did you get power? By fucking over everyone around me. And I wonder why I'm surrounded by people who hate my fucking guts. And I wonder why I'm surrounded by a new generation that has no loyalty to me and hates my fucking guts and wants to see me burn in hell because I've gone after them to gain power. Wow, geez, I wonder. I really wonder with the mainstream media about just how... First off, how dumb they are. And my next question is, how far are they going to be able to take this? Because they've got a lot of allies in politics right now, namely within the Democratic Party. Go back to what I said earlier with now they're trying to get Facebook to be regulated by the FCC. Well, how the fuck do you think that's going to go? It's going to be a disaster. People are going to flee Facebook, YouTube, same thing. What happens if they go after YouTube? I swear to God, if the US government goes after YouTube, it will be the best thing that's ever happened to our
I mean, you already saw that, like, several senators have recently come out where they're like, we need to start applying antitrust to Google. Like, I mean, people have been saying that since forever, but it's getting traction.
Yeah, but they're mostly saying that because they're scared themselves, and also that's coming on the heels of the of all the shit where the Ministry of Truth for the government ministry for the protection of the truth.
Yeah,
Al Franken. Yeah, and like God, and even that, like, that's something, it reminds me of something we passed over. I don't know if we put that on there. I'm sure we should have. Fucking the UN, not the UN, the EU is actually starting to implement their plan to have an EU army.
Oh, well, that doesn't sound like completely something out of 1984 now, does it?
Oh, well, no, the best thing is that literally a week beforehand, people, like, all the people that kept saying the EU were doing that were being called tinfoil. Were being called tinfoil on social media and everything, and then the same people that called them tinfoil a week later are like, yes, finally!
How is it tinfoil? The EU has been openly talking about this for years now.
Tinfoil.
Yeah, like...
If you get, like, 100 reporters to just call people conspiracy theorists for showing something that they themselves reported on, you can convince people that it's conspiracy theory.
Yeah, it's like all the way back, like, in, like, earlier this year in June. Like, German officials were always like, we're already, like, the EU army is inevitable because of, like, the Americans are no longer, like, freedom and so on. Blah, blah,
Fucking
blah.
all those goddamn articles in June. Juncker is mad about, mad about Brexit.
Yeah.
It's like, who cares what Juncker
then, of course,
thinks?
fucking Farage is like, hey, man, fuck Soros. And then everyone's like, oh.
Immediately, I'm like, oh, well, this dude's getting shot.
Yeah. Like, the EU is, like, Fourth Reich soon. Like, Merkel, all those memes about her being, like, the new Fuhrer. Yes. It's the memes are coming true as they always were going to.
Great. Now we're going to deal with, like, Keck Volt or something again.
Again. With
again.
We were incidentally right about one obscure thing, even though we're wrong all the time about tons of other obscure things. Therefore, we're never wrong. Whatever.
Yeah. So, speaking of the EU, I guess we should close this with Catalonia.
It's not like that became a meme because they saw the patterns that were already there. No, it must be fucking
Speaking
like magic.
Of the EU,
it's magic.
Eventually we're going to have to talk about the German election and how Merkel has yet
cheated
to be
again.
able to, has yet to be able to form a. If you can believe it, it's been months now. What, a month now? 2 months between the election and now, and she has yet to be able to form an alliance to rule.
Well, at this point, I would say, and I mean, honestly, it's probably kind of weird that I'm delegating stuff, that I'm going to be, like, issuing, like, orders/suggestions on air, but I think what we should do is break into teams for the next bit of content we do after this Edgecast, and have a love seat with Cart Merchant and talk about Saudi Arabia with him if he has any insight with it, because, I mean, he did live there, and...
Yeah.
And then love seat with Tyler and talk about the German election and German politics and stuff.
Yes.
But
Tyler knows a heck of a lot more about the German political landscape than us all three combined.
Yeah, but then he's going to come on and be like, no, guys, I want to talk about tanks.
Because what do you expect? He's German. That's what the Germans do. They're obsessed with tanks.
Fucking... Well, we can have a giant debate with him about the American war machine like we had last night on air later. But I think we should round this out since we were talking about the EU with Catalonia. Now, I still have to do more of my homework on this, but it's fucking complicated. It is extremely complicated, especially from the regards of, like, anybody who cares about culture. So there's been articles like the people who talked about, like, you know, Kosovo and Ukraine and everything else. It's like, if you guys were so good with Kosovo and all these other Soviet satellite republics getting their own independence before the fall of the Soviet Union and everything else, and then the same people are like, but Catalonia can't leave Spain. Like, and then the thing with, like, the president of Spain versus the king of Spain and the riots going on and everything, like, all of that. Like, this goes back a way far way, apparently. Because, I mean, Spain until around the Second World War was never actually a unified country for a long time. Like, this is, since Ferdinando and Isabella, we had this kind of, like, you know, the kingdoms of Castile, the kingdoms of Aragon, and all this other stuff. And then Spanish
Well, that goes back to, like, El Cid and the Reconquista.
Yeah, and then, like, the next big step in all of that after Ferdinando and Isabella, where, like, the two of them were kind of like a schizophrenic ruling couple, was the Spanish Civil War, where like their Stalin had Bolshevik agents and his like Politburo and everything there that were supporting the Catalonians supporting the Catalonians and the Basques in northern Spain, and because they were like they were more socialist, they were more communist. Like Stalin's bullshit, and so were the Bolsheviks. But like those were the methods by which they were trying to get their independence, because they didn't want to be part of the rest of Spain at the time. They were their own culture. They don't even speak Spanish, actually. Like they speak Spanish, but like their main language is Catalonian, which is a totally different dialect. And it's not even a totally different dialect. It's a totally different what the Basques speak is a totally different language. But what Catalonian is like Catalan versus Spanish is like Catalan is like kind of like an eighth Romance language.
Interesting.
Like,
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's more different. It's like the difference between Spanish and Portuguese is the difference between Catalan and Spanish, really. Like, they sound similar to people, but that's because like you don't know the language you're speaking. I mean, I have lost most of my multilingual skills, so I can't just like go on a diatribe about language right now. But I did grow up speaking 3 different dialects of Spanish, and I don't understand a lot of Catalan at all. And like further than that, like after Franco took over after the Second World War, when he was still the phalangist dictator and everything else, he was really upset about them being communists and everything else. So he put his thumb down on the Basque and the Catalan real fucking hard. So Catalonia had been like in the shit forever with that. And then modern Spain, post-World War II, post-Franco, democratic, like the democratic monarchy of Spain.
Yeah.
The EU and the UN, globalism and all that other stuff that we all know about, like, their economic power plays in constantly, has been fucking with them the entire time. Spain is like, kind of, it's like Greece light. In the sense that, like, Germany and the rest of, like, the larger economics in the EU completely fucked them and destroyed parts of their economy and has essentially been using them as, like, cheap labor.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, Spain made it through better than Greece because Spain has, like, one of the most robust tourist economies in the world. But, now they're into this modern push for independence, and there's all these hypocrites coming out that are making absolutely no argument for why they can't leave the country. And I mean, when you have the president saying no, like, wasn't it the president saying no, but the king saying no, fuck you? And then everybody going, well, the king is just a figurehead. You don't get to make decisions. And the king is like, I'm the fucking king of Spain. Like,
my understanding is there's no provision within the Constitution of Spain to allow a region to leave. Which I kind of sit there and I go, well, there's all sorts of international agreements saying that if a region wants to leave a country, they're kind of allowed.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
what
then
the fuck are you
the
going to
EU
do? March your army in?
The EU suddenly wants to play the part of, like, the concerned constitutionalist. Go fuck yourself. Like, they can go fuck themselves.
I look at Catalonia, it's like, okay, let's say Catalonia sticks to its guns and says something like,
no, fuck you, we aren't going to pay taxes.
Yeah.
What's Spain supposed to do? March the army in? How do you think the international community is going to view that?
I mean, if we have a second Spanish Civil War, that's going to be some shit.
I don't even think you get to a Spanish Civil War. I think you basically get the media will eat you alive. If it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah, but that's true. But the thing is that with how hard the EU pushes for everything, like, I foresee like, Catalonia getting crushed from all sides unless, like, somebody like the US steps in and says, no, leave them alone. But, which could very well happen in a proxy war scenario. But, I mean, depending on what Trump thinks and what people like Mattis and everybody else, and the State Department thinks, and depending on what, like, I could foresee Catalonia declaring independence, like going through with this declaration of independence, and having a second Spanish Civil War, and then both Russia and the US clandestinely funding the Catalonians the entire time. And, like, look, man, the Spanish Civil War was bad enough that, like, you know, there's still more like war memorials about the bullet holes in churches and everything else. Like, there's still facades that are totally pockmarked in suburban and rural Spain that are, like, you know, bombed out churches, all this other stuff from just their Civil War. Like, I don't want to fucking, like, I don't want it, obviously, but I especially don't think the EU is going to want to fucking deal with, you know, want to deal with like the having to fucking use their media ties to bullshit to try and, like, bullshit away stuff like, you know, white phosphorus bombs going off.
It would certainly
like,
speed the dissolving of the EU if people see the EU is willing to use force to keep countries from separating.
Yeah. That's probably another reason why they're pushing so hard for the army now. Like the army, like, they've been talking about it forever, but suddenly now, like, they really need the army because they're like, you know that even if they did form a whole army, the backbone of that army would be all of the fucking, like, Slavic countries that were part of the EU, Greece and Germany, because France doesn't have shit. Like, the best, like the armed forces of the rest of Western Europe is a fucking joke. Because all of their best, like, all of their troops are actually, like, have actually seen combat and have actually done anything and actually haven't been completely shafted by the bureaucratic infrastructure of their cities are people like the French Foreign Legion, where they don't give a fuck about that and they're off busy in, like, Algeria or something. Like, they still have, you know, decent world-renowned, like, special forces units, but, like, their actual mainline, like, line infantry and line units and everything suck. And because of Brexit, like, the best military power in Western Europe was Britain, which, like, they've always been like good at war at that kind of thing. But, like, the British are like, no, we're not going to help you. They're not part of that shit anymore. And so, like, if the EU does that, they're not gonna have an army that can stand up to entrenched guerrilla fighters. They're not gonna have an army that can actually deal with any kinds of problems like this.
I don't even think it gets that far. I think the political blowback from them deploying troops is enough to start to create a scandal. And you know how Eastern Europe is going to react to that. Eastern Europe is going to be pounding the table, screaming, what the fuck is wrong? It wasn't that long ago that Eastern Europe was dealing with the fucking Soviets doing the exact same thing.
Do you who the fuck thinks that Hungarians and Hungarians and Bulgarians and Austrians and like just like all these other, like, you know, Germano-Slavic republics and everything else that already were fed to the meat grinder like 3 times over in the last, like, 100 years. Like, who fucking thinks that any of these motherfuckers are going to be like, yeah, we're totally gonna send our sons and daughters off to Spain to fucking die for the war, like a war that the Dutch and the Germans want.
Or they're gonna turn around and they're gonna point at Merkel and go, this is all your fucking fault for trying to get us. It's gonna cause more animosity. And unless there was a report from the German military, I think it was, and it was a projection of how they think Europe is going to advance. And they concluded by 2040, it is more than likely that the Eastern European EU states will have left the EU and signed up with a Russian-backed free trade zone. By 2040.
Warsaw Pact 2.0.
Warsaw Pact 2.0, but think about that. That means within the next 20 years... Suck our collective
dicks edition.
Yeah, that means within 20 years, the eastern half of the EU breaks away. That is, in terms of geopolitics, 20 years is the blink of an eye.
Yeah. Swade, do you have anything do you have any input on any of this?
Not really.
No, I don't care.
I have nothing to say apart from Catalonia is just like the Catalonians are just the Flemish of like Spain.
Well, I mean, so are the Basque.
Yeah,
like the Basque and the like I'm not saying like I'm one of those people that's like the underdogs or the sad people. Like I don't even like the politics and the philosophies of like the the Kurds, for instance. But I think that those people have been fucked over enough, and they should have their own space.
They absolutely have been. It's just like what they do with that own space is part of the concern, because if you have the Kurds and they should have their own space, well, what about all the people that aren't Kurds in the space that you give to them?
Yeah.
Like, that's part of the problem.
It's another, like, Exodus of Israel situation.
Yeah. It's like what about the Palestinians and so on? Like, it becomes an issue where, like, you give these people what they need, but then they turn around and they abuse others the same way that they themselves were abused.
Yeah, but to be fair, like, the thing is that Catalan, like, I'm not saying, like, it's a shitty countryside or something like that.
Yeah.
But, like, it's not like it's a major vacation spot for all these other Spaniards from Madrid and everything else. Like, they're like I said, they're literally their own culture with their own language that most other people in their country do not speak. Like, if there's any Spaniards that live there, if they're either, like, entrenched nobility with their villas and everything in the countryside that, fuck them, I don't care. Mm-hmm. Or they're people that are basically, like, have joined the Catalonian people and are like, no, this is my land too. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm sure there's dissenting opinions. I'm sure there's, like, older people, like, older retards in Catalonia that's like, no, we should stay. It's more economically viable for me. But, like, I'm not saying, like, it'll sort itself out, but it's one of those things where, like, you kind of have to just let them do it and see what happens. Because this isn't the Middle East. This isn't Africa. This isn't a place where it's like it's not a fucking place that had been suffused with tribal warfare in recent memory. Mm-hmm. That has been going on forever. Like, these are people that lived side by side with them perfectly fine for a long time, and they are leaving because the rest of the other countries around them want to abuse them economically.
Yeah. That's definitely the case, but, like, it's still an understandable concern by the Spanish government that, hey, even if we let you guys, like, leave, what happens to all the people that didn't want to leave?
I mean, the thing is that, like, they're not helping the situation by just outright denying that. And,
they're
like,
not
trying to exacerbate a war. Like, they could at least go, well, can we talk about this and work something out for, like, a migration program? Because, like, that's the thing that just smacks me if it's wrong.
But on the other hand, like, they don't want their own citizens that would stay to be forced to migrate. Like, they don't want to have things forced upon others. They would rather things just stay the same. And
that's fair. That is fair. But my point of what I would say to that, though, is that, like, that idea has not crossed the minds of any of these people.
No.
Like, none of the people involved in this political scandal have, like, said anything like, but what about, like, if they have said anything about it, it is just like the geopolitical equivalent of what about the children? Like, they're just using it as, like, as like a cudgel to fucking, like, beat their way out of the red tape of the whole thing. And instead of embracing the issue. Because, like, you could say it's a whole problem, but then just going outright denying it and then refusing to fucking compromise on anything. Like, cause that's what they've been doing. It's not just, oh, well, we're denying it, but can we talk about this? Maybe we'll reduce taxes or something like that. It's just, no, you're gonna stay and you're gonna like it.
Yep.
And, like, that's the same shit that they tried to pull with Brexit, but, like that was the tone of everything they did with Brexit. I mean, yeah, we can say realpolitik all night and say that this has to do with, how, like, the reason why people were hypocritical in the past about the Soviet republics was, we were at war with the Soviet Union and yada yada. But, like, if it's the same reporters, if it's the same people that are obviously being the same hypocrites, like, I understand what you're saying. I think that you have a point. Mm-hmm. And I do believe that there are going to be people that fall through the cracks and get caught in the crossfire. But, overall, it's probably a better thing to let them go through with it and then negotiate with them after, as opposed to just outright denying everything and then refusing to compromise on anything. And then acting like you're the victims that have had their hands forced when you have to go into, like, suppress riots and shit. Like this is like, this is incompetent parenting. Is what it feels like.
Yeah, no, it's definitely the case.
All right, well, I guess that's everything, guys.
I think that's everything.
I'd agree.
All right. Swade, take us out.
All right, this has been the Edgecast. I've been Swade, and the others have been themselves. And this is
I am me.
Yeah, this is our worst episode so far, so I hope you enjoyed it.
We have only... Maybe episode 15 will be even worse.
Yeah.